Hi guys, Olive here. Here today to review Will by Will Smith with Mark Manson. This book was published in 2021 by Penguin Press, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. The hardcover copy of this book comes in at 432 pages. However, I read an e-copy of this book that I accessed through my library. This book is more or less a memoir. You could almost consider it an autobiography because in this book, the actor, musician, all-around global superstar Will Smith looks at the entirety of his life up to this point. But the reason why I'm hesitant to say that it is, in fact, an autobiography is that there are certain aspects of his life that he really goes into within the book, and other ones he doesn't. And that is what I would expect from an actual autobiography. So let's just say this book falls somewhere in between a memoir and an autobiography. But within the book, he is definitely very focused on discussing all of the life lessons that he took away from all of the different phases of his life that are discussed within this book. Starting off, he talks about his early life growing up in Philadelphia, of course, and he talks a lot about his family, more specifically the three family members who he believes had the greatest impact on him growing up. And he says later on in the book that he thinks that these three people, his mother, his father, and his grandmother, all brought very different things to the table, but they all definitely shaped who he would later become. So his mother, for instance, taught him the value of education. His father taught him the value of discipline. And then his grandmother brought love and religion into the mix. And looking back on this now as an adult, he can see how those different elements really shaped who he became as a man. Of those three family relationships, the one that's discussed the most in this book is definitely Will's relationship with his father, because Will had a very complex relationship with his father. His father had some alcohol problems. He could turn violent, especially when alcohol was involved. He was very rigid, very demanding, had very high expectations of his children. But then on the other hand, he taught Will invaluable life lessons. He instilled that discipline in him. He gave him kind of a code to live by, and he always had his son's back. So Will definitely had a lot of mixed feelings about his father growing up, and then as his father was dying, he discusses all of that in this book. I think it was very difficult for him to reconcile that his father was simultaneously one of the best men he's ever known, and then could be one of the worst based on his actions. I found reading about that relationship particularly interesting, and not just because I wanted to learn more about Will Smith's early life or what shaped him as a man, but I think it's a really good example of just how complicated parent and child relationships can be. I think people are very multidimensional. Our relationships with them can be very multidimensional, especially in the case of a relationship between a parent and a child, because there's so much added pressure to both sides. So it was really interesting to see him be so honest about that and show how complex those types of relationships can be. After he discusses his upbringing, though, he spends a lot of time talking about how he got involved in the music industry. And that makes sense because that's basically where his career in entertainment got started. And during this section, he gives this fascinating mini history lesson about how rap and hip hop got started, how it originated in New York City and then spread across the country in the pre-internet days, and him discussing his experiences being a part of DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince during this iconic moment for rap and hip hop in the late 80s. It was just incredible to read about. That was probably my favorite part of this book, if you couldn't already tell, but it was actually really interesting reading about all the different things you would expect to read about in a Will Smith memoir, autobiography, whatever we're calling it. It was really cool to learn about how the TV show The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air came about, different moments during the filming of that were especially tough, how he went from that show and transitioned into becoming a more serious actor, at least an actor who was taken more seriously. And then he talks about becoming a bona fide movie star. I didn't know this, but apparently that was an objective that he set for himself. That was a goal that he wanted to achieve. And in this book, he talks about how he went about achieving it. But as he's discussing all of these different things going on in his career, he is simultaneously talking about what was going on in his romantic life at the time. He is a serial monogamist. He definitely likes having a woman in his life. So he talks about the girlfriends he had as a younger man, relationships that he really thought were going to go the distance, but sadly didn't end up doing so. He talks about his first marriage happening very, very quickly, having his first child with his first wife, and then that relationship dissolving, meeting Jada Pinkett around that time, knowing she was the one, talking about how they got together, they got married, and then their 2 children together. But even though he is very candid throughout this book, I definitely noticed there are some things he chose not to talk about. And that is something I was curious about. The moment I heard this book was going to be coming out, I was wondering, is he finally going to address those Scientology accusations? Is he going to talk about that big news item of 2020, where we all found out that Jada had a relationship with someone else while they were separated? And he doesn't talk at all about the Scientology stuff, and he only briefly mentions that he and Jada were separated. And when he's discussing the separation, he's mainly talking about what he did during that time, trying to figure out what went wrong and how he could better himself. I found the tone he took in that section and his focus on himself and what he could learn during that period to be very appropriate because of what this book is trying to do overall. I thought it fit in really well. I thought it definitely suited this kind of a book where he's talking about all these different life events and he's pausing sometimes in the middle of those stories or talking about the lessons at the end of the stories. He's talking about what he took away from those experiences and what you can learn from them. So whether it be a lesson to learn how to seize opportunities when they're right in front of your face, working hard, pushing yourself, holding yourself back from saying really hurtful things to the people who you love because you can't take them back, they can't unhear them. And then the lesson that's really tied to his separation from Jada is learning how to relax and just be. I was really glad that he included that last one because listen, I'm an American, but I feel like I have slowly been training myself to gain the perspective to stand outside of my own culture and look in. I think reading has definitely helped me in that pursuit, but I feel like I'm able to look at us as Americans and determine what makes Americans American. And Will Smith is definitely an American. That whole rise and grind, the sky's the limit, you can sleep when you die kind of mentality that absolutely does make you very productive. It gets you places, but make no mistake, it has a cost. Will Smith is extremely hardworking and he has all of this energy. It's really incredible. He's a born performer and he knows it. And he has so much perspective throughout this book. But there is one thing that I noticed him not noticing, and it's only because it's something that I've come up against as well. Will Smith is very ambitious. I am also very ambitious, not at his level in any sense of the word, but I also want a lot of things. I want to do a lot of things. I want to be a lot of things. I want to have many fingers in many pies. That's just kind of the person I am. And I've noticed that I get confused sometimes when other people don't want that exact same kind of life. They don't want to be doing a million things at once. They don't want that frantic kind of energy in their life. That confused me in my younger years because I thought that everyone wants to do all of the things. I saw Will Smith getting kind of confused about that in this book as well. He has so much energy and so many different things that he wants to do. Just like he just needs all of these creative outlets because he has such a huge personality, such a huge creative presence that he would sometimes talk about the dissolution of certain friendships as though that person just wasn't ready for success. They were scared of it, so they self-sabotaged. I never saw him notice that other people might not want that kind of a life. And there's nothing wrong with not wanting that. That's fine. Not everyone can be a bona fide movie star like Will Smith. I think we here on planet Earth would have some serious problems if we all wanted the same things and if we all had Will Smith levels of energy to go out and pursue those things. So it is actually probably quite a blessing that all of us want different things out of life. And those were really all of the notes that I had because I just really enjoyed this book. I had so much fun with it. I liked that he talked about the high highs and the low lows. He wasn't scared to give himself credit for all of the incredible things he has accomplished throughout his career, but then he's also not afraid to talk to you about the times that he's really screwed up. And I think it definitely demonstrates that as much success as someone has achieved, they might seem like they're on top of the world, like they want for nothing, but even they don't have everything figured out. And throughout this book, Will Smith definitely emphasizes that life is a learning experience. This book just screams Will Smith. His humor is in here, his larger-than-life personality is in here, but then also his down-to-earth, relatable, grew-up-in-Philadelphia-ness is in here as well. And I think that has a lot to do with his co-writer, Mark Manson, who is the author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. You can feel all of his experience, all of his skill with writing in this book, but Mark Manson's voice is undetectable. And I think that's the job of a co-writer or a ghostwriter. You want to help channel that person's voice and you want to construct a good work. But other than that, you don't want your influence to be felt. And he definitely did that well in this book. You can tell that Mark and Will Smith definitely worked well together. I think Will Smith fans will be satisfied by this one. I mean, does it include every single detail of his life? No. Should we expect it to? Also probably no. Just because someone's a celebrity doesn't mean they owe us every single detail of their lives. But I can tell you that reading this book felt like spending time with Will Smith, which for me is kind of a dream because I have been a big Will Smith fan for what feels like my entire life. The very first album I bought as a kid was his first solo album, Big Willie Style. I've seen almost every single one of his movies. I know the lyrics to an embarrassing number of his songs, which is great for karaoke nights. I'm a fan of his, in other words, and I just had the best time reading this book. And I imagine most Will Smith fans will feel the same way about it. So if you're a Will Smith fan, you might want to pick this up, or if you know of any Will Smith fans, this one would make a fantastic gift, especially around this holiday season, because the tone of this book is very reflective. It is very much about learning from your past mistakes and bettering yourself, which I think definitely suits the tone as we're heading into the new year. Everyone starts thinking about the changes they would like to make in the fresh new year toward the end of this year, which is around the holiday season. So I think it would be a really great time to read a book like this. But if you or anyone you know are going to read this book, make sure that you have some time off of work, away from responsibilities, so that you can watch The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, watch his movies, listen to his music, because while you're reading this book, you're getting all this great behind the scenes info, and all you will want to do is go and listen and watch whatever he is talking about. So you're going to want some time to make sure you can do that. So those are my thoughts on Will Smith's new memoir, autobiography, whatever we want to call it. Still haven't decided what to call it, even here at the end of this video. If you've read this book, if you want to read it, if I've convinced you to give it a try, please let me know any or all of those things down in the comment section below. And if you would like to keep up with what I'm reading and writing about right now, you can find me on a variety of places around the internet. The links to everywhere you can find me will be at the bottom of the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.